abolitionist women were frequently driven to do what they felt was necessary to eliminate slavery because of, I guess you could call, a conservative motive. They felt that slavery was a sin, and they felt that since they were the bearers of moral standards, that it was particularly a female duty to fight against this central sin, not just a sin in the American nation. And that commitment encouraged them to do things that were way out of the normal expectations for women, to carry political petitions around and to lobby for people to sign them, to sell abolitionist newspapers, to go from door to door trying to persuade people to join an anti-slavery organization, all of this very public work. Now, I would say that was really radical. For some women, that experience and being criticized for that involved them, led them into feminism, a belief of women's equality, and a belief that women should participate politically. But that was a small group. But the point I see as more important is that abolitionism radicalized women whether or not they fell down into the women's right camp or not, because it forced them to do things in the public spaces of their towns and communities and their rural communities that were really, before that, not considered to be something that women should do. So it was very radicalizing in that way. A petition sounds like something that you'd probably sign outside the grocery store today, and it doesn't sound like a very radical activity. But in the 19th century, what these women were doing were carrying around individual petitions that would be sent to their state legislature or to Congress with very specific kinds of demands or requests. For example, in Illinois, some of the petitions were attempts to get the Illinois legislature to act more even-handedly towards black residents of Illinois, or to get rid of the black code in Illinois. And so carrying this petition around meant visiting everybody you knew and making the case for your petition. It wasn't just sign here, it's that you had to argue your case, and in some cases you'd be arguing a case about something that was going on in Washington, or something to do with the war in Mexico. So it meant that you had to inform yourself and learn how to speak to people whom perhaps you didn't know very well, and to encourage them to make a commitment that otherwise they wouldn't make. So petitioning doesn't sound like much when you say, well, the women petitioned, but it was really an activity that entailed a lot more than getting people to sign a dotted line. So that was one sort of activity. Trying to circulate anti-slavery newspapers. Anti-slavery was very unpopular. It was not an easy sell, and women again would go house to house carrying these newspapers and trying to encourage people to read what many would have regarded as inflammatory stuff. In fact, right in the 1830s, you can see some opponents of abolitionism saying this will destroy the Union for another 30 years, but they were quite right about the nature of this reform commitment. Women raised a lot of money, and abolitionism was not very well financed because it was very unpopular. So they put on community sales that, again, don't sound like very much on the face of it, but they had to bring in all kinds of people who were not abolitionism to make money. But once they had them there, these anti-slavery fairs were really propaganda pieces where they tried to assault the buyer with anti-slavery messages and to pull them into the anti-slavery community when they were there perhaps just to buy a Christmas present. So these were activities that were, on the one hand, very public, frequently carried women into very sticky situations, personal situations. There are accounts of women who are petitioning, and you can read them sometimes in newspapers or in personal letters where they talk about being thrown out of people's houses when they're trying to get someone to sign a petition.